So much football to talk about, and we are excited about that. Now into September, 1 week of college football in the books, plenty to discuss off of that. And the NFL kicking off this weekend. The Titans and Vikings over at Nissan Stadium just after noon on Sunday. All of a sudden, a very winnable looking game for the Titans. I think a lot of people thought the Vikings coming off of a playoff berth last year. They won the NFC North. Teddy Bridgewater is a young, dynamic quarterback. You've got a great running back in Adrian Peterson, a good defense led by Mike Zimmer, the head coach. This is a team that could make a run in the NFC, maybe get up there into the echelons to battle with the Panthers and the Cardinals at the end of the season to even go to the Super Bowl out of the NFC. Obviously, the Vikings world rocked last week when Teddy Bridgewater went down with that broken leg. He's out for the entire season. They've had to figure out what they're going to do. Trading for Sam Bradford, Sean Hill's on the roster, but obviously he's no Teddy Bridgewater. So what do they do this weekend? Odds are probably it's Bradford taking those snaps, but how effective will he be 1 week onto the job in Minnesota? Meanwhile, the Titans come in with a lot of momentum off of this preseason performance, and they feel like they've got a new roster ready to make strides. An opportunity to get perhaps a good win. Because here's the thing. I think Minnesota's still going to be a good football team this year. Competing in the NFC North with the Packers, for sure. And quite possibly a playoff team. Again, if they get any type of quarterback play, I think the rest of the roster is really good and capable of doing that. But are they going to be really good this Sunday the way they would be if Bridgewater was there and they never skipped a beat? I think that's a real question mark, and that's what the Titans will hope to take advantage of in game number one. Chance to win an opener for the third straight year for the Titans. Amazing to think they've done that and then fallen apart the way they have the last couple of years. Back to the phones we go. LD, thanks for waiting. You're next up here on SportsLine.
All right, thanks a lot, Steve. I support your program, and I'm glad to see you there at your network, man. But first I'm going to start off, man. It's going to be a little segment, but I hope to get it done at the end. I'm going to start off with the Tennessee Titans and their games this season. I think it's going to be a Dick LeBeau theater. Once that opens, this screen opens and they close the date, I believe that's going to be Dick LeBeau's theater. He's going to dictate this Titans season. I'm Dick LeBeau, and I'm closing out with the Titans. College football, Vanderbilt, I'm staying in states. Vanderbilt, Tennessee, primarily. When you hire a coach as Butch or as the guy at Vanderbilt, you can't do what Butch has done and throw those guys under the bus at Tennessee, which he's already made statements preliminary to those guys being on the field in uniforms and in numbers. I will only say that about Tennessee because Tennessee played a great game this first game and they won, but he has yet to throw those guys under the bus as he's done before. I will say that. Vanderbilt, Mason, they didn't put a head with the coach. You have a coach, but we had no headlines of what that coach could do. Vanderbilt football has been through so much detrimentally that even if he says it's the media, which I know it's not that's programming, he has to realize we did not see his heading. We only see the coach on the sideline calling in players, taking out players, and they're falling. I'm going to say that. And then I also think if you're thinking about college football, you want to ask yourself, is there a Jerome Bettis on your campus? If there's not a Jerome Bettis on your football campus in college football, you 9 times out of 10 are not going to be considered a national champion or in the playoffs as they do today. That's my segment, Steve. Like I said, I support your program, and then I see you at your networking. I'm LD, and I'm just listening.
All right, LD, we appreciate the call. Interesting stuff there. The running game is obviously important in college. What is so fascinating to me that we saw this weekend is how freshman quarterbacks came in and made impacts. Jalen Hurts at Alabama, Jacob Eason at Georgia. Last night we saw it with DeAndre Francois at Florida State, although he's a redshirt freshman, had the extra year under his belt. Shane Buechele, Texas, Sunday night. These guys are walking onto campus and they're making plays now. That's how the game has evolved, that quarterbacks can come in and make the impact. I think that lessens some of the need to have a Jerome Bettis type of back. But obviously, you've got to be able to line up and get yards when it counts. And that's what having a guy like that, having the Leonard Fournette, having the Derrick Henry that Alabama had last year, that really sets you apart. In terms of the coaches you talked about, I think Butch and Derek Mason are different in the sense that Butch worked his way up, Central Michigan, Cincinnati, to get to Tennessee. Mason was a defensive coordinator, and he is a great defensive coordinator. You talk to anybody around the country, the job he has done with defenses, including the defense at Vanderbilt, is remarkable. The interesting thing there, you said they got the coach but not the head. And I think what you're saying there is a guy that's not necessarily the leader or the CEO of the program. And that's what's so frustrating about this first performance, is the fact that when Derek Mason came in, I think that was a legitimate concern. The way he handled that first game against Temple with all the quarterback changes in the first season that was really, frankly, just kind of a mess. But to me, Derek Mason's a smart guy. And after the first year, he kind of took stock of what was going on in his program and said, you know what? I need to make a change. I need to make a change. I'm going to do this. I'm going to become the guy in charge of the defense once again. That led to improvement last year. They were a better team. And I think the thought was, you take that another year forward, Mason's defense gets a little bit better. The offense takes some strides with a quarterback that they had now picked in Kyle Shermer. This could be a good football team. And then they walk out there on night one and they flip-flop the quarterbacks again. Just, if you're a Vanderbilt fan, you have to wonder, where have I seen this before? Is this like deja vu? And obviously it didn't work out. I trust that we aren't going to see much of that moving forward based off of the experience. But once again, you're playing South Carolina in the opener. You're not playing Elon or Presbyterian. This is a SEC game. When you walk out there, you want your best guys out there to determine the outcome. And for two of Vanderbilt's 13 possessions, their starting quarterback wasn't out there. And then they lose the game by 3. That's certainly cause for concern. Back to the phones we go. And hello, Marty.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thanks.
All I got to say about the game against Vanderbilt and South Carolina, I think it's ridiculous. They changed the quarterback. Schumer, he can run the offense. You know, I don't understand how can you put 10 points on the board in the first half and second half you can't even. The offense coordinator needs to step up on that. I mean, it don't make no sense to change that quarterback. It was crazy. It was stupid, man. You know, and I've been a Vanderbilt fan a long time. I just get tired of seeing it. I mean, I don't want to cuss. I'm sorry about cussing, but I'm just pissed off about that. It's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. That's all I got to say about it.
Yeah, Marty, we appreciate the call. Watch the language there, folks. The frustrating thing, again, is that if you're a Vanderbilt's fan, you've seen this story before. You've seen that quarterback switch, and it hasn't worked. They played 5 quarterbacks over Mason's first 2 years. They've won 7 games. Teams that win games generally have a quarterback, and they keep him healthy, and he plays well, and they don't mess with it. So to say you finally have a quarterback in Kyle Shermer, and then 4 possessions into the year, he's standing with a clipboard on the sideline because you want to get the next guy reps, just doesn't make sense. And the way they tried to defend it after the game made even less sense, which really, I know, frustrated some Vanderbilt fans. So you can only hope it gets better moving forward, that they've learned their lesson. Mason said today, you learn from things and you move on. Usually the best improvement is from game 1 to game 2. That's what you got to hope for if you're a Vanderbilt fan right now. That Kyle Shermer is the guy out there, and that Vanderbilt can keep on keeping on with better performances. Andy Ludwig, certainly part of the decision, but this goes to Mason. I mean, even if the offensive coordinator is the guy who is the genesis of that idea, as the head coach, especially with your history in this particular topic, As the head coach, you've got to step up and say, we are not taking out Kyle Shermer in the first half of this game when it's 10-0. We're not. That's not in the game plan. We're not doing it on the spot in the game. We're just not doing it. We get a big lead. We feel comfortable at the end of the game. Then we can get him some reps. We're not doing it in the second quarter. That is the responsibility of the head coach. And he didn't do it this time. Good evening, Mike. What's happening?
Hey, I got a question. Do you think any chance maybe down the road that Tennessee will ever get in their formal players to come on board and be on staff at Tennessee? I seen T. Martin was out of USC, and I just hate that we've had all this talent in Tennessee, and maybe with Peyton retiring, do you think Peyton maybe ever get to come to Knoxville or do something with the football team? And my other question is, why can we never have a big bowl game like in Indian Stadium? I know we're going to Bristol this weekend, but we ought to be able to have something that looks like in Indian Stadium, because with the seating that we have there, it looks like it would revenue a lot of money to come to Tennessee and, maybe give it to some charity or something like that, or just, really, I just don't understand why we can't get the recognition like Michigan and Notre Dame and all these other big names. Why can't we ever have something major big?
Hold on, Mike. None of those schools have bowl games.
Okay, well, answer my question. Why do they have out in Atlanta, why do they have the SEC championship out there every year? And I'll hang up. Thanks for your time.
Yeah. The SEC championship's been in Atlanta partly out of tradition, partly because it's centrally located and it's a neutral site. The SEC as a league doesn't want a game played in a campus stadium because somebody then has to be essentially the road team in a championship game. They want a neutral site. That's why it's played in Atlanta. I think at some point that game could potentially be played here in Nashville. If you want it in the state of Tennessee, Nashville's the hope for the SEC championship or the college football championship or whatever. It's not going to Knoxville because then it's essentially a home environment if you're Tennessee. And in terms of the bowl structure and all those sort of things, they're looking for the shiny new stadiums, not necessarily 100,000 people because it's hard to sell 100,000 tickets. So they're looking for the shiny new stadiums that have suites and all those sort of things, not necessarily the biggest stadium. It's also outdoors. That's not something they want to mess with when you talk about the college football playoff. And so if you just start talking about bowl game, maybe Tennessee and Neyland Stadium could get into the pecking order for a bowl game. But there's 39 bowls out there or something like that. So you kind of got to get in line. And do we really want the 40th bowl? I mean, at some point they're going to just shut this off. They've had to deal with 5 and 7 teams in bowl games last year. So at some point they're just not going to let it expand anymore. But do you want the 38th bowl game or the 40th bowl game in Neyland Stadium? Who's interested in that? That's not going to be Tennessee playing. Do you think you're going to get a huge crowd for San Jose State and Western Michigan? I don't see the real value in that. It's something to explore. If they see the value or they think it's a perfect matchup, sure. But in terms of the Tennessee program, nothing's holding them back. They've got the resources. They've got the facility. It's a great facility. It's a wonderful home environment. It was even for the Appalachian State game on a Thursday night last week. They don't need to bring in a bowl game to help out the Tennessee program. Let's go to Danny. Danny, good evening.
Good evening.
How are you? Go ahead.
All I got to say is the only thing wrong with Vanderbilt is not the players, it's not the offensive coordinator, it's the head coach.
Yeah. I mean, so you're just done with Mason at this point?
Yes, sir.
All right. Danny, we appreciate the call. And unfortunately, I think that's the answer from a lot of people. Derek Mason, unfortunately, followed the most successful coach in Vanderbilt history in James Franklin. And whatever you think about him individually as a Vanderbilt fan or just a college football fan, what he did at Vanderbilt is undeniable. And he set the bar with 3 straight bowl teams, back-to-back 9-win teams. That's the act that Mason had to follow. And Franklin is such a salesman that he tried to pump everybody up. about the program, and he did a good job of it because of what they put on the field. Mason's just a smart, intellectual guy that is a good football coach. He's not the salesman in the same way, though, and he had to inherit a difficult situation. He didn't sell the program like Franklin did, and then he walks on the field and struggles with the management of the quarterback position, loses some games early on that he probably shouldn't have lost. And right at that moment, he lost a chunk of this fan base. He's started to win them back over a couple of seasons, but the goodwill he built up might have all gone away on Thursday night because the expectation for this team was to be better. And South Carolina is not a juggernaut. That is a very average team by SEC standards that doesn't have much to offer against you offensively. And it was a winnable game. It's on your home turf to start the season off. It was a winnable, right there for the taking game for Vanderbilt. They were up 10-0 in the first half, and they couldn't get it done. And some of that goes on the players. There were plays to be made, interceptions in guys' hands that they couldn't squeeze onto. That maybe changes the tide of the game. Missed field goal late. Play calling there that went conservative leading up to the field goal. There are different things to talk about in this game. But the biggest thing that people are going to continue to talk about is this quarterback change. Why take him out when you're up 10-0 and then watch what happens? That's an impact. And that goes directly to the head coach. All right, we got to take a break. We'll come back. More of your phone calls. If you're waiting, stay with us. If you want to call in, go ahead. 737-7767 is the number. We'll be back right after this.